up just
Mm.
joining. I haven't set one up myself, so we got it going here. How are you doing though?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Doing good. It's nice to talk to you. I've got like obviously tons of questions and stuff, but I thought it'd be good if we just at least met first.
Yeah, no, definitely. I this is kind of my first time doing something like this, so sorry I probably seem a little like I don't know what to say, but I'm still excited.
Yeah, no, I'm excited too. It's a weird thing. It's a nerve-wracking thing. I mean, humans are kind of meant to meet in person, so it's a little
Mhm.
on the computer. It's a little strange, but it's all good. Um, there's something. Oh, I was gonna tell you, I'm so used to hearing your voice from looking into things and listening to things. I've heard your voice a lot, um, so it's kind of odd. I feel like I know you in some sense on this end, and like
Mhm.
I'm a total stranger to you. But so feel free to ask me
Mm.
anything if you have any questions or anything
Um,
more comfortable or
no, I mean, I guess what's kind of I don't know what's kind of the process for everything as far as like I don't know how does this go? I guess because I don't know. I don't really know. I guess is this like a TV show thing or is this just like an investigation thing or is that something I was kind of
yeah. I mean, we're an investigation company, and I'm
hmm
wanting to look back over your whole case
hmm
and just make sure that there isn't anything that was missed, obviously. And I've looked at
yeah
what your goals for this are, and like keep
hmm
the story alive and
yeah
the awareness for abuse and things like that. So
mm,
are all things that are important to me too. So
yeah
it's important, if nothing else, just for the awareness with the abuse and everything. I think
hmm
is worth all of it. Anyway,
absolutely
the outcome is. But also, I think what would be cool for me is to have something like this to focus on. And I'm really good at organizing things, and I'm really good at like
hmm
tearing things down to their very basic parts and then putting them back
yeah
together. And so, with a case, I think doing that by tearing this all down and putting it back together, if there's been anything missed or looked over or
yeah
um, just something that might be worth exploring,
hmm
it could lead to finding your mom's remains. I mean, that would be the ultimate goal, right? To get you
absolutely
and everything. So I wouldn't even know what to do with myself if that happened.
right
I'm sure you
no
know.
I've said that myself like if that does happen one day I'm like I don't even know how I'd feel about it just because you get so used to it being a certain way that when it's different, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, that would be a massive thing, I think, for all of us to deal with. But anyway, I think getting there, if that's how it turns out, cool. If that's not how it turns out, I think um, just knowing that somebody else has looked at it and a whole team of people at that. I mean, I'm going to be
Mhm.
looking at it mostly, but we have a whole team of women here, and everyone's
Yeah.
interested in the case. Everyone's interested in knowing what's going on and helping in whatever way they can help. So, um, maybe we'll get somewhere with it, and maybe something was looked over. And I don't know how back in 2008 with the Henry County Sheriff's Department. I don't know how much
Mm.
good old boy system they had back then. I
Yeah.
don't know if it's all the same people there. I know that Monty Blue has retired, and I've reached
Mhm.
out to him. I haven't heard anything back from him yet, but you just never know. You never know with
Yeah.
the system. Maybe they're all stand-up cops. They're all stand-up guys. Maybe they did their absolute
Mm.
best, but maybe they saw the case through whatever lens they were looking through at the time, and
Mhm.
especially knowing the whole family.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree about that. And I guess with me being so young at the time, it's not something I was even able to be super involved in just because I'm not of legal decision making age. So that's something as well. And dealing with an adult missing persons case is always a little weird because of the whole time frame and stuff like that. So
Yeah, and the legalities around searching, which this was, yeah, this here is Tennessee, not Kentucky. So as far as
mm,
the laws Tennessee. I know recently they did the new Holly Bobo where it's like they'll search for an adult up to a certain age, but we
Hmm.
have to wait like that 48 hours, you know. And in the beginning,
Yeah.
it seemed like because of what her job was, her occupation, that they kind of
Mhm.
looked the other way because of that. Maybe made some comments that were inappropriate, right? But
Yeah.
you know, it could have just been that they were doing whatever the protocol was at the time.
Hmm.
But the Conger family seemed to know everybody too. So you just,
Yeah.
I don't know, something could have very easily been overlooked or disregarded or
Mhm.
being like it is what it is, you know.
No, I definitely think so. And that was something I was a little worried about upon like receiving the case file is I realized a lot of the information, I feel like I already had a good portion of it, except for the photos and the interviews and stuff. Cause I know with a lot of the links to video and stuff like that, they didn't work. At least when I was trying to access them, they didn't work. So I was, that's something that made me feel a little apprehensive is just, not really having a whole lot to even put forward with the case file. I don't know if it's just what they can't give me legally, but I mean, I did go through, all the channels of filing for it and stuff like that. So to me, it's kind of like, well, dang, there's not a whole lot to give here.
Yeah, I noticed on the Facebook page that you're working on and your aunt on that
Mhm.
somebody had sent you a link about a gentleman that was willing to pay for and help. Is that the route you went through?
Yeah, that's the route I went through. And I went and filed all of it with my grandmother, because she's a resident of Tennessee. You have to live in the state to be able to get it. She went and did all of that. I basically did everything for her. She took it to the sheriff's department. And I want to say, I spoke with Scott Wyrick, I think is his name. And I want to say Andy, but that's the service tech that's doing my oil change tomorrow. Jenkins, though, Officer Jenkins.
Okay, yeah.
I've spoken with him, and they've been really helpful, and they told me, anything they can do to help me out, they don't mind doing so. um, but yeah, that's the route I took. I think I went through. They went to filed it with the clerk, all that stuff, and then that was what was my grandmother mailed to me.
Yeah, so reach out to Officer Jenkins also, and maybe even see if he would be, entertain me and just have a meeting with me and see because whatever it is that you don't have, if there's more,
Mm-hmm.
I want to try to get it. Not only for you, but obviously the more information I have, the better. The more I'm going to be able to go off of. Um, just before I get into all of that, I wanted to just find out a couple of things from you, just to kind of start things off. I wanted to make sure I understood that you were young when this happened. You were 13, right?
Yes.
And do you feel me when I was 13? I have like very few memories of 13. It was a rough year for me, and
Mm-hmm.
a couple of years there in my teenage years, and so I don't have a lot of clear memories. So, how do you feel about your memory at that time? I mean, do you still feel like it's pretty vivid for you? I mean, I imagine if you've told the story a lot that, you might remember it differently now or you look back at it.
Well, I think I think for me, I feel like I remember, but I feel like I've also told it so many times since then. Like I've done a lot of like speaking out or doing different podcasts or something like that, or even writing it out. I feel like I stay pretty consistent, but I feel like it kind of is repetitive, not necessarily as much coming from my memory as more I know the story, so I'm going to tell it this way over and over. I think there's bits and pieces that stand out more than others, but around the time of everything happening, I remember the day that she went, I guess the day that she went missing. I remember that day still pretty vividly, just because it was, you wake up and it was just a weird vibe. Like everything felt kind of off. And and I can still remember like how I felt pretty vividly that day, but the days after that, it blurs together. And I still haven't been able to listen. I've listened to all the interviews in the case file except mine, because I don't know. I just haven't worked up to that yet because I feel like it's going to be weird to hear what 13-year-old me had to say about everything. So,
yeah, it's a traumatizing event. So that's why I wonder about memories and things like that. But actually had some kind of off the wall questions about that time that
yeah,
would be a little bit different. That in my mind, it's kind of like important to, I really want to understand as much as I can about what Paul's train of thought might have been. Um, Obviously, his motives are kind of obvious, but like where he was in that headspace, maybe try to wrap around. You know how a criminal did a profile on a person, which will kind of lead you to obvious behavior that they're gonna,
yeah.
It comes away. One
I
question.
guess. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I was to say with Paul, if as far as like predicting his moves, I know he liked something he did all the time. Like he wanted to be unpredictable. He always was doing stuff to like, I don't know. A lot of it was playful. Sometimes it, borderlined a little bit, but I feel like with him, he liked to do stuff that would be playful or trickster type stuff. So I feel like he was always coming up with something to surprise people or just do something to put you out of your comfort zone, I guess. So he was a pretty unpredictable person. So when I think about predicting his actions, I want to say, yeah, I think he did this, this, this. But everyone makes out like he was a lot calmer than what I feel like he was. So I guess I tend to think with him in a state of mind like that, what was he thinking? Was he thinking that he could drive across Paris or take a back road or whatever with essentially a body in the vehicle with him? Or did he do something quickly? Because I feel like the timeline does put it very perspectively, I guess, if you really think about it.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, it's one of two things, right? Either it was premeditated, even if it was 24 hours premeditated.
Yeah.
Old Doug already had a place, right? If he was that calculated, or if it was something that was heat of the moment, then that obviously changes not only the location, but like the way he could have gone about it, how much time he had with her afterwards. But what I mean is kind of precisely that is like how you would have predicted his behavior and how his brother or how his cousin or whoever is all going to be skewed according to your relationship with him. So when an outsider looks in at the whole situation, I'm not only looking at him, but your mom, you, everything that was happening during that time, every little tiny detail.
Yeah.
Really, to me, might be asked, but like, there being McDonald's stuff, I guess, in the vehicle, the truck. Immediately, I'm like, well, did Rachel even like McDonald's? Was that a common thing? Did she really?
I feel like for me and her, if we got breakfast, we always went to Burger King and got like Cinnaminis. Like that's, if I think about a breakfast thing that we did, that was it. And I don't know, we didn't eat a whole lot of McDonald's. Like that wasn't our thing, but I feel like he used to get like sausage biscuits or something like that. So that might've been something that he was maybe munching on, but I just feel like maybe if she did a hash brown and some orange juice or something, I don't know. But it wasn't like I don't feel like it was super common for us to even eat McDonald's.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is all initial, right? I'm like just looking at everything. And so, the first couple initial things is just, it's so important that morning, what happened? Was it her leaving in a hurry? did she say like, I'm gonna come with you, or was he like, I'm gonna take this truck back to Doug myself and tell him to leave us alone? And she's like, no, I don't want him going out there and then trying to drive my car back. And she, I'm like running all these scenarios through my head.
I know for a fact she left in a hurry because, you know, I was old enough to be home by myself, you know, and we lived in the middle of nowhere. So it wasn't like it was a huge deal. I knew not to answer the phone, answer the door, whatever. And when I woke up that morning, you know, she didn't leave a note. She didn't have anything like that. She didn't text me or anything, you know, letting me know when she was going to be back, because we had plans to go somewhere later. Because I was about to start spring break from school. Mm-hmm. And me and one of my friends were gonna go to Clarksville with her later that day to stay at Terry's house, her friend.
So when she was supposed to take that truck back, was that going to be your trip to Clarksville?
Mm-hmm.
Supposed to have that truck back around noon or something.
Yeah, we were all me, her, and my friend, because we were gonna go and meet her Doug, who let her borrow the truck. We were all gonna have lunch and exchange vehicles. And I think me and Kinsey were gonna watch Terry's kids for, like, you know, while they were at work and stuff like that. And then we were gonna go to the mall the next day and, you know, do some shopping and stuff like that with the money we got from babysitting, and make like a thing of it, just because it was our spring break anyway. So why not? And we had a half day of school the day before, I guess the 12th. We had a half day at school. And now when I woke up that morning, there's like no note, no message, nothing saying that our plans had changed. And the back door, like the screen was shut, but the wooden door was open. And if she was going to leave me by myself and it was like not a rushed, like, hey, I have to get in this vehicle, she would have like shut and locked the door.
Yeah, I wondered if it was like because she thought she was coming right back, you know, we're going to run to McDonald's and come right back.
No, I mean, I know that even if she was leaving to come right back, she would have shut the main door. Even if she didn't lock it, it would have been shut at least.
So you would have had no idea what she was actually wearing when she left that morning?
No, I only know what she was wearing that night.
And it wasn't a blue shirt?
No, it wasn't a blue shirt. That night, I remember she had on, like, I guess now we'd call it leggings, but, you know, sweatpants, tights type sweatpants that were black, and it was like a burgundy shirt with pink lettering, and probably some black tennis shoes or something like that. But I definitely remember, you know, that's what she was wearing that night.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's a couple of, you know, just initial little questions that I don't see anywhere, you know, with some stuff that's popped up in my head. You know, did she even eat McDonald's? And did you happen to know what she was wearing? I didn't know if, you know, you had gone through her clothes back and then like, this is what's missing, or.
No, I mean, because we had moved fairly recently. So all of our stuff was still kind of, you know, getting organized and a little all over the place right then anyway. So I don't think I probably would have noticed, you know, if something was missing or out of the ordinary as far as clothing. I do remember, like, something that kind of was like off to me that happened that night was where we were staying in Como. It was with walking distance of my friend, her name was Kinsey, who lived down the street. And I'd been at her house, and that's when I'd, you know, called them and everything. And finally they came and picked me up and we went over there. But Paul had said something like he needs to go lock the doors at his house, which was kind of weird to me because he wasn't like worried about stuff like that. You know, his house there was all of, like, his family was all around it. So if someone was poking around, you know, someone would notice. And I don't know, it just never been like a big deal. And he left and came back, and I saw him because I'd left my phone charger at Kinsey's house. So I walked down to her house to get my phone charger really quick. And on my way back, I saw him parked at the little post office in Como. And that was like I'm right next to our house over here. And when I walked in the house, my mom was like, Paul wrecked the truck. And I was confused, but I realized, like, as I was like, wait, what? He walked in right behind me and like said, oh, he was just joking.
But you saw him parked like across the road in Downways at the local post office.
Yeah, and I assume he was probably calling her then, and maybe he saw me, like, because I don't remember if I stopped or like creeped around it, because I knew it was like, I was like, why is he sitting at the post office? Like, in my mind, I thought it was weird. And I walked into the house, and my mom was a visible, oh my gosh, he wrecked the truck. And right before I'd left to go get the phone charger, we'd had a whole conversation about, how he's off his medication, he's acting crazy, he's talking about burning the house down with us in it if I don't let him stay here tonight. I just need to try and work this out, because I was mad. We'd left him. I didn't want to go back to that. And she, assured me, no, it's not that. It's, I'm doing what I need to do to keep us safe. And what I need to do to keep us safe is make sure that he's at least content, and I'm acting like I'm fixing things. So,
I mean, I immediately feel like a sense of like, you're so lucky to be alive. I mean, there's just no telling with someone like that. I mean, he could have been waiting and anticipating kidnapping you to hurt her.
mm-hmm. And I mean, I think about that sometimes, because there's a lot that I realized I didn't know about him until later. And, one of his daughters definitely told me this more in, I guess, in confidence, because I asked about Ann, their mom. I was like, how were things? Because no one told me anything. I was a kid. And she was like, I've never really talked about it like that. And, my mom is still really, really sensitive to it and doesn't like to bring it up at all. But, but she told me that what led to them leaving back all those years ago was Paul beat up the oldest daughter, who was about 10, really bad, like black and blue, wouldn't let the other two younger sisters talk to her at all. And the mother was like, no, we have to go. We can't be a part of this anymore. And she tried to leave, and he ended up kidnapping them, I guess, basically, and took them to his mother's house and had some sort of standoff, like some sort of issue with the police. Like, I don't really know all the ins and outs of it, but I know that she never had anything to do with him. If we went to pick them up, like, it was, they came outside, got in the car, and that was that. And if he was acting even kind of antsy, a lot of times we would only just visit for the day in Alabama and stuff like that. But she had to like leave the state because he was stalking her. They had to move from house to house until finally they went to Alabama, or at least that's what she told me. And, it was the same. He could be great. He could be a lot of fun, but he could be terrible. So.
Yeah. I mean, just from what I know, it just seems like it's weird looking at these situations and realizing that, like, when you're in it, you don't see it. And there's like all these warnings, and usually it ends with somebody unfortunately getting killed, or and it's so sad. And but it's like it's not a passing of judgment, right? It's just so watch. I mean, I have women in my life that I watch go through abusive situations. You just cannot shake them out of it. There's like,
yeah, and it's crazy, really, because looking back now, because you go through periods where you're mad. You're mad at everybody, everything. You're mad at her for not leaving. You're mad at him for what he did. But I mean, it's all like a big cycle of violence at the end of the day. she thought she could change him. You know, when it was good, it was good. He would leave like love notes, like handwritten love notes all over the house for her to just find randomly. And for like 3 years after he did this, she would still sometimes find them like tucked somewhere, and she would keep all of them in a little box when she found them. And like he would do stuff like that, or we would just spontaneously go on vacation somewhere, like, oh, let's go to the Loretta Lynn Ranch, or let's go horseback riding 6 miles in the wilderness. Who knows? You know, it was always an adventure with him. So I could see, you know, as a woman, the allure of having somebody who was established, you know, not that he was, you know, super well off financially, but had establishment, had, you know, I guess the quality she saw in a man, someone that would surprise her, be spontaneous with her, and not only her, but her kid. So I can imagine at times when it was good, it was really good, because I loved him. You know, he was a father to me. So it's always a little weird to think about the bad stuff, because when you're a kid, you think it's normal. So
No, I totally understand. I want you to understand too. I think it's important for you to know that, like, not only me but my mom,
mm-hmm.
women that are working on this case now, that grew up with abusers, and I
Mm-hmm.
who were abusers, and I love them. I still love them. Some have passed away, and it's not only a forgiveness thing. It's like I don't know why I was a child. I love them. Those were
Mm-hmm.
so regardless of what they did to me, I still love them, right? So it's difficult to process the fact that you can love and care for someone, but yet they treated you bad, you know?
Yeah.
So people around you want to be like, how can you not hate them, or how can you not, all these things. And so I just tell you that so that you understand that
Mm-hmm.
you have women working for you that completely understand the full spectrum of that experience, So
No, I definitely like that, just because it is hard to explain to people that don't understand that, you know, that when everything happened, I didn't just lose my mom, you know, I lost him, you know. I really feel like I didn't talk to his family. Like we talk on Facebook occasionally and some, you know, stuff like that, but I don't know, I lost all of those relationships too. So it really just felt like a whole chunk of my life was just gone.
yeah,
I was like, I don't know what the heck is going on anymore.
yeah, that's an important age too. I mean, even with something as what seems simple now as a divorce, 11,
Mm.
14-year-old girls specifically, that's just the worst age for that to happen. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
death and trauma and all that stuff is super heavy. Well, if any of this ever becomes overwhelming or too much,
Mhm.
feel free to tell me back off,
Oh
or
yeah.
break or whatever. But I am going to dive really heavy into this. I'll probably have lots of
Mhm.
questions. And
Okay.
set up another call with you, maybe even as early as tomorrow evening
Yeah.
or tomorrow. You work during the day, don't you?
Yeah. I usually. Um. Are you like you're like an hour behind me, or
I'm
you're
now.
in Tennessee, or?
Yeah. So for me right now, it's 10:30.
And for me, it's 11:30. Okay. Yeah. Okay. This helps because my grandmas and stuff are in Tennessee, so it's super okay. Yeah, I usually work until about 8:30 at night my time. And it can vary. Sometimes I get off a little earlier. Sometimes I stay a little later. Kind of just client to client. So
Well, and I may shoot you a message tonight on Messenger too. I'm going to
mm,
go over a couple of things. And
yeah.
I'm kind of a late night person myself when I'm working. So
Mm,
everything quiets down at night. You can kind of think better than during the day when everything's going on. Um,
definitely.
I may just shoot you a message here in a few, and then we'll set up for another call where we can go a little more in depth on everything you're sending me, and all the notes I've taken and everything, and go more into it. Tonight, I just wanted to initially like meet you, say hello,
Mm,
who's working on your case, and if you have any questions, like anything, any little thing,
mm.
feel free to ask if you think of anything weird, even if you think it's the weirdest thing. Like, you know, if you look through pictures at Paul's house
Mhm.
or wherever and you see something funny, like there's a shoe in the floor, was that your mom's shoe?
Mhm.
Did you know him to be a drug user? Or is that drug paraphernalia in the house? Like, there's so many things that might not be mentioned in the report that might end up
Yeah.
being useful for me. So,
I I guess something I think about, um because I know like in the photos there was some stuff like I was like, oh, okay, that's a little drug looking to me at least. And I knew that they'd smoke pot and stuff like that. But as far as anything harder, I know one time, kids are nosy and I was snooping through my mom's stuff and I remember finding like some little pills and stuff like that were like unmarked. And, I ended up telling her, I was like, yeah, I went through your stuff and I don't, and she told me she was holding them for somebody else, a family member that was potentially in a lot of trouble. So she got him until he wasn't going to be in trouble anymore. And that's kind of the only thing I knew other than, occasionally smoking pot or drinking or something like that. So I guess that stuff kind of came as a little bit of a surprise to me because I know throughout when my mom started dancing and stuff, she told me, she was like, I I don't like that I end up having to do this, to make ends meet and stuff like that. But, I think about you and it keeps me from diving into stuff that's, heavier because a lot of the girls there do use drugs and stuff like that. But she didn't want to go down that path just because my Aunt Lisa, her sister, she was a heavy drug user for years, like crack, meth, all of it, like heavy drug user. So I wonder if something like that may not, because she'd been living with us, so I wonder if some of that stuff could not have been maybe her stuff.
right. Well,
um and I mean, I don't know if that's a stretch because I don't know at what point. I think she was still actively like using at that time because I know she's been clean. Well, not she's been in using methadone at a clinic and stuff like that for I don't know, 10 plus years or so, something like that. Because right after everything happened with my mom, she overdosed. Like she took a bunch of pills and tried to kill herself, I guess. Because she always said, I've been to jail. I've been through all of this. If you say the word, I'll kill him and then you'll never have to worry about him again. And, my mom, she's not going to let her sister do something like that.
we can end this real quick.
Yeah. Right. Like I'll take this. It's fine. I'll just be done with it. So part of me wonders if maybe that could have been her stuff or maybe that, I don't know. Like I said, I'd never seen any of that in front of me at all.
Yeah, and
So even like the smoking pot, that was not something like I ever saw her do. I just saw, like a little, little joint papers and stuff like that. And I'm not, naive.
yeah, and it's not something that I'm looking into for the purpose of any type of motive, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
motive here doesn't even matter at this point. It's
Oh yeah.
more of his state of mind. So if there's
Mm-hmm.
in his house, but nobody has mentioned him being a drug user other than taking stuff for maybe bipolar or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody was giving him something as simple as a Xanax to calm him down, could that have mixed in with his medication and caused a certain psychosomatic reaction? Or
Yeah.
using meth or heroin on top of
Mm-hmm.
bipolar meds or whatever, it's like, what kind of state of psychosis was this guy in?
And yeah, no, definitely.
To understand someone's state of mind at the time if you can, because that
Mm-hmm.
narrow down if he was even capable of digging a hole or premeditation or things like
Mm-hmm.
that. It's all those little things that if I could fine tune not only the timeline but kind of his state
Mm-hmm.
of mind, and if we could even figure out what it was he was upset about, which I'm assuming I kind of know, obviously everybody speculates it's like the phone call that came in or
Mm-hmm.
the fact that she had finally moved out and was going to make it on her own, and him saying something as simple as, "Let me have this one night with her." I mean, that
Mm.
right there, just that statement, like, "Let me just have her for tonight."
Yeah.
That's important to me, that he used those words.
I really feel like, I guess for me, I feel like it could have been something that he thought about doing for days. Maybe not, like to the T or anything like that, but I remember leading up to that, he just had a different vibe. I say vibe, but I remember anytime he was in like a weird, I guess maybe it's a manic state. I don't know. Anytime he was like heightened and angry and stuff like that, it's like his pupils took his whole eye. Like, I don't know if you ever watched Supernatural and like the demons or whatever, but it's kind of like a similar effect, like pupils, all pupil, and and I don't know, just a raging bull kind of mentality. And I feel like he'd just been off. Like the day before when I saw him, I didn't speak to him because the whole preface of us finally leaving, I feel like really was because of me. Um, I didn't do something, or I didn't take some garbage, I think it probably was, before I walked the dogs and it got in the yard and it just set him over the edge.
Yeah. I actually, for whatever it's worth, from hearing that part of the story, reading that part, I actually think that your show of strength against him gave her strength.
And I like to think that part of me also thinks that she might have been scared that he would start being physically abusive to me because I was showing that kind of strength. He's the type of person that would want to squash that down, if it's something that opposes him and he's in the right state of mind. So part of me feels like it maybe it did give her strength, but maybe it also scared her to think that he might put his hands on me too. Because I don't know. I remember I had friends over and everything, and he didn't really. Usually, if I had friends over at the house, my mom would let her. I don't know. We would go, before they saw anything too crazy. But I don't know. I remember just screaming at how much I hated him and everything like that, uh, and he like chased the car when we left. Like we're driving, he's running behind the car like a crazy person. And I couldn't talk to him after that. Like I just couldn't even bring myself.
Yeah.
I was so angry. So the day before everything happened, he had been helping her unload some stuff off of a trailer because we've been trying to get all of our stuff from his house. And he still just looked off. He just looked off. I didn't want to be around him. I feel like he was weird looking. I don't know. So I don't know if that kind of stuff is maybe the stuff that you're thinking of.
Yeah, just any little detail, and that's what I mean. Just think on it. Obviously, always think on it. Go live your regular life, but spend some
Yeah.
time about it. Write it down. Any little thing that pops up, memory wise, or something that you're like, I remember this thing happening, and I wonder if that could help at all. Just because I'm gonna go back over this like from the beginning all the way through, and every little detail I can to try and get a clear picture, and then maybe that'll give us a narrowed down couple of places that we can go look. And I'd like to go out to Paris and look at the area and talk to whoever is willing to talk to me, any police officers, any family members, and I want to do it carefully too, because I don't want people to get upset or think that we're accusing
Yeah.
of anything. It's really just about information and me kind of reading people. Maybe everybody will be super helpful, and something good will come out of it. And like I said, if nothing else, will bring more awareness to some signs of abuse and some
Mhm.
look for when somebody's progressing like that, because it tends to progress. You know, people get more
Yeah.
violent.
I really think probably, you know, I know my grandma definitely has her own ideas, but I mean, as far as I do feel like his family was really way too involved in the search. Not saying, of course, there's always a party that wants to think maybe somebody knows something more, maybe, you know, because you never know. And especially when you feel like coincidences go together, but then at the end of the day, you're like, hey, this could be my overactive imagination and my hurt feelings coming into play more than logical fact. But I do know his family has always been at least visibly very open to helping, and they seem like they really care. Um, Obviously, you know, blood's thick, and they're gonna. I even could tell in the interviews, you know, a lot of them are not wanting to say how temperamental he really was. They're not wanting to dive into that. They're wanting to give him more, and oh, we never saw that. And I watched some of them hit her. Like I know they know. And I feel like Richard's interview was probably the only one that was actually even close to saying anything about the actual abuse. But for what it is worth, I do feel like they've always been very cooperative, but I do feel like they were allowed a little too much leeway in the searching and stuff like that, just because that's his family at the end of the day.
Completely agree with that. It's a little suspect that the family was so involved. But then at the same time, I'm thinking if I was missing, my family would insist, right? They'd be like, "Oh,
Mm-hmm.
put me on a four wheeler, like we're looking too, right?" So
Yeah.
that. I mean, what would be the motive to, what would be the motive to taking the body and hiding it at this point, especially? I mean, if you had access to it and you could hide it and all of that. I mean, the only motive would be to save family name or face, like
Mm-hmm.
something more that was so awful that they just don't want that fact out there. But it's I don't know. I don't know. We'll circle around back to that once I get deeper into all of this and
Definitely.
have a better opinion at that point. And I think I'll be able to either I think I'll be able to tell you one way or another whether we find her or not. I think that
Mm-hmm.
we have some type of pretty good closure with our whole team and everyone's opinions and talking to people. I think that we'll at the very least be able to tell you that, like, his family, there's something up and we need to look into this further, or like not involved, they're helpful, they're trying to help, that kind of thing. I think you'll
Yeah.
have an idea of that either way.
Yeah. No, I mean, whatever type of closure comes from this is good. Whatever type of sharing it, getting it out there, all of it can only be positive, because at the end of the day, you know, you have to create your own kind of closure in situations like this. So
Yeah.
I feel like you know, not being a young kid anymore, I definitely understand that there's so many variables and so many ways this can go. And I listen to a lot of like Crime Junkie and stuff like that. So I mean, I know, you know, there's looking into it, and there's, you know, let's hope for the best, but understand that there's a lot of variables. So
I agree, me too. And it's something, I'm kind of a crime junkie. I told my mom, I was like, I didn't watch Law and Order my whole life for no reason.
right, right. We gotta know a thing or two at least.
Yeah, so I'm super interested and excited to take on this type of case. And my mom is the owner of the company, by the way. Her name's
Oh,
Ruth.
that's cool.
Um, she'll be involved too. And I was telling her the same thing. I said, if
Mm.
one person somehow gets away from an abusive person because they recognize
Mm.
this guy's behavior or this guy's pattern, I mean that would be worth all the work that's getting put into all of it. Just one
Yeah.
I'm like, well, wait a minute, this is
Hmm.
so.
No, I definitely agree. You know, because Richard Paul's brother, his daughter Felicia was in a really abusive relationship, and she actually told me a few years ago that that's what really woke her up and got her to leave. But she's like, I just couldn't believe what had happened with Aunt Rachel, and I was, she's like, it could have been me.
Yeah, so
So you know, whoever else ends up hearing that and thinking, oh my God, that could be me. I need to get out of this. I agree with you 100%. It's worth it. So.
And you said that was Richard's daughter, Felicia.
Mm-hmm.
And then how old was she when she had that realization?
Probably like mid 20s, maybe. To mid 20s to early 30s. I don't think she's that much older than I am.
And do you know who told her about what happened to Aunt Rachel?
I mean, I assume her dad, Richard, told her, because I mean, it wasn't, all of us lived in Paris. Everyone knew, as soon as they started looking for Paul and my mom, everybody knew, because I started calling people pretty instantly. So, hey, where's you seen her?
To me, if it's Richard who's telling Felicia, like, hey, look, it shows compassion for the
yeah.
So it shows him saying, like, hey, don't let it in like that kind of thing. It's to me one little snippet of somebody showing compassion versus let them work it out. It's their life. Let them figure out being more of like a callous person.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's good to know. I'd be interested to maybe even ask Felicia, how did you hear about family stories? It's just something you picked up from over here. Did somebody in your family set you down and say, this is what happened?
I mean, I'm almost certain she'd be willing to talk to you. I don't think she's Felicia Conger on Facebook anymore, but I can send you what her name is in case you wanted to reach out and speak to her at all.
Just shoot her over to me. And then one more thing I'll leave you with before we hang up.
Okay.
The Adam character that's kind of come up. I still have yet. There's a couple Adams on Rhonda Conger's Facebook page, which is Richard's wife.
Yes.
It's a little foggy for me because I'm trying to figure out who's who, right? But there's also a Roger, I think.
Yeah. They all have our names. It's a little weird.
Well, their wife is also named Rhonda. So
yes.
I have the right Rhonda. But I did find a couple Adams on that Rhonda page, and I may send them to you and just see if you recognize them. Because if their story's true, you would have known them at that age. You would have seen them. He's claiming he was around during that time. So
it's crazy because I cannot think of what that. I mean, definitely send them over to me, and if one of them like stands out, I'll tell you. But I don't know. Rhonda was always very Rhonda was always very eccentric. I don't really know Roger's Rhonda. She kind of came into the picture, I feel like, that last year. And I don't know, whenever I was around, Roger and Randy out in Dover, I think it was Randy's daughter, Samantha. Me and her were the same age, so we'd be off, riding four-wheelers or something like that. So she's not someone I ever really interacted with, but with Richard's Rhonda living like kind of down the road, I definitely saw and interacted with her more.
All right, cool. Well, that's all good information to go on. Like I said, I'm going to shoot you a message here in a little bit because I know I've got a couple little things that are down in here in my notes that I want to ask you about. And
okay.
And we'll
definitely
set up another call.
Yeah, and you're welcome to message me or text me or whatever if you have any kind of questions. And I usually have breaks here and there in the day, and I can shoot you a text. That's pretty easy for me to do, and then we can just meet like this whenever you want to, and whatever you need me to do.
Cool. I've enjoyed talking to you. Okay. I was trying to see if I had the go ahead to hang up. I didn't know if I needed to end this.
We'll definitely do it.
Okay.
The end of the call. Hi, Amber, by the way.
Now the director's.
Hey.
I've been trying to avoid the whole camera thing the whole time.
You've done a great job.
Hi, Amber. It's Louise here.
Hey.
So we all here.
Oh, it's nice to meet you guys officially.
I'm squished behind a camera. So.
I saw your finger go up, so I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm supposed to hang up or not.
There's a couple of things. So, for the sake of, really, did you manage to find a photo?
Oh yeah, I got a few things that I found.
Just tell us, kind of out of context, it doesn't have to be about what happened. But
I had gotten, because like after everything happened, you know, some of the stuff that was still at Paul's house, his oldest daughter actually, I guess, you know, being upset, she burned a lot of photos and videos and just like memento type stuff. So I've been collecting photos since then, and I have a few. I got this one.
Yeah, maybe you can scan these and send them to me.
I printed them out because I didn't know, you know, what to do with them, but I have them all on my laptop, and that part of my laptop works. I don't know why the webcam doesn't, but yeah, I have like a bunch of stuff I've found, like me and her, and
Do I just talk a bit about any of the pictures that you remember?
Yeah, you can tell me what's going on in those photos.
Yeah. Well, I know this one was my Uncle Marty, the brother that my mom was the closest to. This was at his wedding, and I was the flower girl.
There's something so similar about my mom and me and your mom and you. It like makes me want to cry a little bit.
We were super close.
It's like me, as a little kid.
This one we were in Wyoming on vacation. Like we took an RV trip with my Mimi, which is my mom's mom, and Paul's parents. We took a trip in an RV for like 2 weeks to Wyoming from Tennessee. Here we were hunting prairie dogs. So she wanted to try and catch it in her hat. And I don't know who took the photo of her, but she was looking for it. We're waiting for it to like pop its head up and see if we could catch one. She was a huge animal person. Like if she could catch it, enjoy it, or save it in some way. She ended up accidentally trying to save a baby raccoon that ended up being like rabid. It was a whole thing. So
I just took some squirrels myself to the animal rescue place that I rescued that fell out of a tree, and I was like, well, they're mine now. But
yeah, we had squirrels once too, kind of the same thing. They were cutting like trees next to our house once, and they ended up finding a nest, so we just brought them to the house. And I think we were at like the Grand Canyon or something with that's my grandma, my mom's mom. Okay. I have quite a few of the ones from that vacation. I guess some of the ones I was more excited to end up getting. This is, I don't know, some birthday of mine, and that's my dad, Jody, and then that's my mom and me.
You've got pictures of you and your dad together on your Facebook, right?
Mm-hmm.
Redheaded?
Yep.
Redheaded too. So I saw the pictures of you guys together. I was like, I think that's her biological dad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, my mom, like, they always had a really, really good relationship. You know, she always just told me they were just really young and it just didn't work out, but they could always still be friends because they were still my mom and dad. So, you know, they never I never watched them argue, or they never said bad things about each other or anything like that. So I was always very appreciative to have, you know, if I had a birthday party, Paul would be there, my dad would be there, you know, my mom would be there if my dad had a girlfriend. It was never like, you know, the awkward family situation. So I was always grateful for that.
How old was your mom when she had you?
I think she was 16 when she got pregnant and 17 when she had me, because our birthdays are the same month. So.
In October?
Yep, 23rd.
This is so weird. So my mom was 16 when she got pregnant with me, and I was days after she turned 17, and my birthday's in October. When I saw your email address, I was like, I wonder if she's because you had the 1023.
Yeah, that's my birthday. My mom's birthday is October 11th.
My mom's is September 22nd, so we're real close. Like,
oh yeah, that's cool.
The day, the exact same distance.
What a coincidence. I'll have to send some of these over to you because I think this is the same from this wedding. This is the Jeep. She loved this Jeep. When I was a kid, it's kind of crazy because in a lot of her old photos, you can tell she had to have she had TMJ really bad and had to have her mouth like completely redone. They took a piece of her hip bone out and like wired metal and stuff in there. And so her jawline looks completely different, like from when she was like younger to when she was older, just because of having to have all that done. And she got so upset because she couldn't eat anything but like baby food and ground up soup because they had to wire her mouth shut. And she blended up French fries.
Yeah.
Because she's like, I just need French fries. I think this one's kind of blurry, but I want to say this might have been from when her and Paul got married. And that's Paul's dad, James. Parasailing.
Where was your mom born?
She was born in Nashville, I think. Yeah, and I have like tree climbing and bull riding. So I'll have to send these to you because I have more. I just got some of them printed out in case we needed to use them.
On your Facebook page, of course, I've gone through like a stalker, like your whole page, looking at everything. My mom had a lot of dental work too. She actually grew like 3 set of teeth, like her baby teeth, her regular teeth, and like a whole nother set, I think is what happened.
Wow.
Like grafts and teeth removed and all kinds of stuff. I also noticed a tattoo, the same place I have a tattoo. Mine says nobody loves no one, which is like meant both ways. And yours, is that your mom's handwriting? Yeah. So I thought that I saw that in your pictures, and I thought, how neat. And then I thought,
that is really cool. How ironic.
It's almost too bizarre.
I did find some stuff I was gonna have to scan and send to you. My granny has saved all like the clippings from like, this is like a benefit car wash bake sale, like the searches that we did and stuff. Like this was the stuff that the newspaper coverage that she saved, and search for wife on search on for wife after husband found dead, and she clipped like the articles and stuff. And like,
oh yeah, does not look like to you in that picture that truck had been stuck in the mud?
And now, I said the same thing. It didn't look like, and where they were talking about, to be honest with you, I don't feel like it was a stuck in the mud situation, because that was not like a muddy road. It was a wooded road, but it was, I never remember getting it like so nasty that it would be like, gunked up or anything like that in that area. And I guess this is from the search that the police did initially.
Yeah, I'm so interested to know what all bodies of water that they checked around the Conger land around in there.
Well,
So interested to find out.
I know the Mennonite community bought his land and bulldozed down a lot of it, but this was a pond that was in our yard that Paul had made whenever we got the bulldozer. It wasn't very deep. Like it probably wouldn't have been over 5 foot or so.
It seems like it's kind of open to where people could see it.
Yeah, no, it was like right in the front yard. Because you can't really see his house. But
Am I understanding that he lived in some type of trailer? Or was that after?
No.
He lived in an actual house, and then at some point he moved into like a trailer on the
no, I'm not sure. I guess that's what my mom had told that guy, Steve, but we had like a camper trailer in the backyard, but my Aunt Lisa actually, she stayed in that.
Okay. So photos that are taken, that's actually inside a structure, like an actual house.
Yeah, no, we had like an actual house, and we had like, he'd like built onto it and stuff. He did make like a storm cellar, like a concreted area underneath it. And from what I understand, they did search that. Because there's also like old wells and stuff around that area. And I think they tried to search a lot of those and what they could at Briar Patch Lake. But I was definitely going to try and scan some of these because I imagine some of it will have some of like the search, like volunteers. This is when they were looking for volunteers and stuff. So it might give a better idea of, you know, what happened. And I'm still looking through stuff because I have a lot of documents and stuff from then. It's just kind of, a lot of it's in my storage building. So I'm just kind of finding where I put it.
Well, very cool. Was that a ring on your back table back there?
Oh, yeah. Because I was trying to get some stuff of hers that I had. My mom's friend Terry, she sent me this, and it was something that she'd borrowed of my mom's, and she'd saved it to send it to me, and she found it, and she sent it to me a few months back after, or it was like right around the time we did the podcast, and she was like, "Oh, I've been saving this. I wanted you to have it."
Wow, I was fascinated with it sitting behind you.
Yeah, and this is actually I got this for my mom for Christmas one year from like, I don't know, the dollar store or something for like $3, and she just kept it. And she put it on her bed because she liked frogs, and it reminded her of the frog and the toad. So I've always just kept it, and I put it, like, wrapped it up so I could keep it.
That's very cool. Well, I'm looking forward to working with you on this. I think now we have a proper goodbye, or do you have anything else?
I'm sorry. I've got
No,
a couple more.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Warn you, I've got a couple more. You're doing such a great job, Amber. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you guys so much. I really, I've enjoyed talking to you too. And you guys have been awesome so far. So I'm really excited to keep it going.
Yeah, well, I'm going to keep going. I've got a few more questions, but if it gets too much.
Yeah. No, you're fine. You guys are fine. I'm good.
So, I have no idea if you're rolling your eyes or falling asleep.
She's hydrating.
That was really nice. Getting to know your mum. What I wanted to know is kind of you to talk Amy through, those days, and essentially how you found out and at what point you knew something was wrong, and then when the police got involved, just your kind of memories of the steps. Just kind of give us a sense of your experience of the last time you saw her, and then just a sense of.
And then the last time you saw her, the next morning, that day, and then your first kind of interactions with the police.
Okay. The last time I saw her was that night. And as I already kind of went over, she told me things were a little weird. He was acting crazy, being threatening. But like before I went to bed, I don't know, I've always been a big reader. I remember I was finishing some book and laying in bed, and I went out of the room, and I went and told her good night. I love you. I'm gonna go to sleep. And her and Paul were sitting on the couch, and I remember her telling me good night. I love you. I'll see you tomorrow. Sweet dreams. And I went and got in bed, and I woke up that morning. It was before 12, I know. I'd probably say maybe around 10-ish.
On Thursday morning? So that was Wednesday night of March 12th?
Yes.
So now we're at Thursday, March 13th.
And Thursday, March 13th, I woke up, I'd say probably between 10 and 11. And I looked around the house because I just woke up kind of feeling off because nobody was there, and we had plans and stuff like that. And when I found because like the screen door was shut, we had dogs, 2 little wiener dogs, and they, she wouldn't have wanted them to get out or anything either. So that was just kind of weird that the door was open and I couldn't find a note. I looked through the stuff on the table. I'm like, dang, there's no note or nothing. And I guess that morning I remember getting dressed, and she had like an address book that she wrote phone numbers and stuff down in. She was really like kind of OCD, I guess, and she wrote everything down. What she ate, phone numbers, everything. She was real organized. And so I remember calling Terry and Maggie, her two friends that I knew. And I remember I called her house or her phone a number of times, Paul's phone. And then I started calling, family members and stuff too, because we didn't have a house phone, but I had a cell phone at that point already because I went to my dad's house and stuff like that. So I'm sure I got some of the numbers off her address book, and I imagine I had, Randy and everybody's phone number in my phone. So I'm calling everybody I can think of, even, random people that I, may not know. Cause I remember I called my friend Kinsey to come over to just hang out with me until she came home. So we went through that day, and finally it was probably getting afternoon, maybe 4:00 or so. And I hadn't heard from anybody. No one had heard from her. And that was just so out of character, because like I said, we'd had plans, there was stuff that we were going to do, and that was thrown off. And it's not like her to not answer the phone and not keep me updated on what we're doing. And we're at a new house too, there's not a lot of food or anything like that. So she wouldn't have left me at the house for a long time just to fend for myself. And I think about 4:00, I went to my dad's house to see if he'd seen her and maybe like if she'd picked up any money for like child support, or something like that. Cause I remember her saying she had to stop by and see him, and pick up the money that he was supposed to give her so that we could, I don't know, we might have been going shopping, and she wanted to get some, I know we were getting clothes, so she's probably going to use it for that as well. But my dad hadn't seen her or talked to her either. And I'd called Doug, the owner of the truck. Like anybody I could think of, I'd called them. And after we left around 4:00, Kinsey's mom, Melissa Braswell, I think it's in there that she made a police report, because I wasn't old enough to make a police report. So we went and talked to the police, probably about I want to say it was like 4:30 or so. And I don't remember which officer we talked to, but he was really rude.
The initial officer was rude.
Yeah. He followed us back out to Kinsey's mom's house and said something along the lines of, call us when she gets back because that's child endangerment and neglect. And he was actually the first person I ever even said that Paul was abusive to. I said I was worried about what was happening because he is he's abusive, he's hit her, and we had left him. And due to, her profession that she was in at the time, and I don't know if he knew Paul or something, but yeah, he said something about, it would be neglect and endangerment. So I feel like that was pretty, like, set the tone unprofessionally for me, and I was upset, because I think about 8 or 9 maybe that night, or it might have been even earlier. I don't know, sometime between, I guess, 7 and 9, I called my dad and my grandma, not my mom's mom, but my other grandma, to come get me. Cause I didn't want to stay at my friend's house anymore. I wanted to be with my family. And I think I probably called my Mimi, my mom's mom, and told her what was going on. After I made a police report at some point is when I told her. Well, I guess I updated her because I'm sure I would have called her earlier in the day too when I was calling other people looking for her. So, but I never made contact with her or Paul, and nobody I talked to had heard from him either. I guess Randy said he talked to Paul really early that morning, and they said they were going to Clarksville, which I already knew that they were going to be going to Clarksville to take the truck back. So, or all of us were. I didn't know Paul was going to be involved, but I guess my assumption was maybe they decided to go ahead to Clarksville, and return the truck and get her car, and then we were just going to go a little later. But I know my granny, my dad's mom knew Sheriff Ballew's family personally. A small town next to Paris called Mansfield. It's literally like this big. So she called him or his mom or somebody and told him, hey, this is not like Rachel. We've known Rachel for 13 plus years, and she is not this type of person. She would never leave Amber. So they put out like the all points bulletin. I want to say the next day, because there'd been enough people that it came, hey, this is not like Rachel. We don't know where she is. And then people were reporting Paul missing as well by that time, I'm sure. So they put out the all points bulletin for the vehicle. And then I want to say maybe the third or fourth day, if they found him on a Sunday, then I guess it was Saturday. They were flying the helicopters like Friday night and Saturday, because then they found the truck that Saturday. And I remember going out there, I think it was Saturday, at some point, and because I remember they were searching, but I don't know, that part's kind of the part that's really a bit of a blur to me, just because I kind of stayed out of that. I feel like my dad was out there the whole time, with my grandmother Louise, and my granny was out there. I know, because they wanted to. I don't know. They wanted to be there for me, and they wanted me to stay at home out of everything, because I guess everyone was a little concerned. If Paul took Rachel and they don't know where Paul is, we need to make sure Amber's safe.
Yeah, sure. And
so,
to see if if they were to find it.
Yeah.
They probably didn't want that being your memory.
Absolutely. And so I think I went out there once, and that's all I remember going out there. And then I remember when they told me they found Paul's body, they called my grandma Carol's house, where I was staying at the time. And they told me, and then I called my grandmother Louise, my mom's mom, and told her that they'd found Paul's body. But I don't really remember much after that, up until the point of going. I did go to Paul's funeral. And I remember going to the police station to do my interview, but I don't really remember anything that kind of stands out at that point. I got her car back from Doug, and I think I called the lien holder. My grandma found the lien holder, and we called them to come get it. And I just took all of her stuff out of it. I know the police officers returned her wallet to me with, her ID and stuff like that, and her cell phone that were in it. But
was it the same officer that took your original?
No, it was Monty Ballew handled everything after that, if it was in regards to me. So And I think Damon Lowe also was like one of the main people involved in the case, and I think it may have been him and Monty that brought it to me. So
Yeah, that's good.
Almost done, I promise, sorry. It's really just it gives us an opportunity to explain to the audience really
Yeah, I forget, like, the audience doesn't have any idea about, like, the chunks that I know.
exactly. What? Now I know there was like a further search a year later. Can you give us a sense of the couple of searches that there were, and then basically what the cops eventually told you had happened? Was there a point where they say this is what we think happened and left it there, or like kind of when they stopped doing the searches, where did they leave it with you?
So I can start with a question about that. The officers, I don't have a lot of information of where the original searches took place. I have the searches that were done a year later. So are you aware of kind of roundabout where, like, were they only searching around Paul's property? Did they search LBL Swan Bay Tower area at that time? Or was it only around the family? You know, because I know they had talked about doing wells and cisterns, but I don't know about the timing. You know, was that done? Was that done a week later? I know that it had rained a few times during that week. So whatever you know about the original searches versus the searches that went on later.
As far as what I know, they did not search at the LBL area at that time. Maybe, or like, as far as maybe they drove around, but I think they were really, really focused more on the area around his house. I never heard of them searching at LBL at all. And I feel like I remember when they were doing the helicopters and they had the dogs out there originally, but I feel like they weren't searching until maybe Saturday. So I remember that they did searches with the dogs and like dragging that pond and stuff that Saturday. And then there was the big search that was organized by them where they got volunteers and stuff like that. And I know they searched the swampy areas and like the wooded areas around his house. The area around where the truck was found, where the deer stand was as well.
Also, like, did the dogs go back into the deer stand area and the dogs were around the marsh and all of that? I mean, were they used a lot?
That I'm not sure of. I could definitely ask my dad because he was there for some of the searches, and my grandmother Louise, her mom, they were there, and I feel like they used the dogs in at least the areas, you know, near his body, because my Mimi always talks about how I guess she was told or she saw that the dog lost Paul's trail by the road near the truck. So she just has this belief that someone picked him up from there and like drove him back to his house. So my assumption is that yes, they use the dogs in that area, and probably I don't think they would have in the swampy areas though. I just don't feel like that would have been where they used them, but I know they did around his house because I remember seeing them then. I feel like the police may have done one other search other than that where it wasn't as public and more just them. But I feel like after they found Paul's body, it was kind of just, okay, here we go, we're done now. Because no one ever actually came to me and said, you know, Amber, we feel like we've done as much as we can do and we don't know where she is. You know, I don't feel like anyone ever did that. or, you know, there's not funding. It was just kind of once they found Paul's body, it was like, okay, we know what it is now, it's done. Because the searches that are the more public ones that I'm thinking that you're the ones reading about, those are all ones that me and my family did benefits and car washes, bake sales, and went to the community and raised money to bring in those teams. Because I know the Q Center definitely had a canine unit that they used, and they wanted to search at the lake. And I feel like they searched the Swan Bay area near where Paul had been doing a job. The one with Randy. I think that's the area they searched him, but I'm not 100% sure.
That would make sense, but then again, I don't think there was enough mileage for him to have made it to that job site. The Swan Bay Tower thing is just such a big area too. I mean, it's a lot. That's why it's like the
Yeah.
But they were using dogs out in the LBL like area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like I said, I guess maybe I don't know. I might could get in touch with Monica Cason. She is the Q Center's leader. So she may have more records than what I can find about where they searched. So
logs, but it's a little, you know, to us reading a canine log and the way they write it, it's kind of like we're not really able to interpret exactly where they're talking about the scope of the search. Were they cadaver dogs just trained in finding decomposition, or did they have something that had her scent on it? And you know, there was a blue shirt involved, I guess, near Paul's truck. I think it was a blue shirt. I don't know if they ever showed you that shirt. It was like, is this something your mother owned? You know?
No.
As far as
I know I was so out of the loop. That's honestly you right now telling me this is the first thing I've even heard of a blue shirt. So
yeah, so apparently there was a shirt found near Paul's truck. And it says in there that the family said that could have belonged to her. But I'm like, could have? Why did nobody ask Amber? Like, that's her mom. She would have said, yeah, that's my mom's shirt, you know. And I think the shirt went to the lab in Nashville, but I don't see where there was ever any results that had come back from that shirt. So
that's something that kind of confused me a little bit too when I was reading over some of the stuff sent. It said that there was blood on Paul that was male gene, but wasn't his.
Yeah, so from what I understand, those were not pants that were in that Ford pickup truck. Those were pants personal dually at his house that had blood on them. And they didn't have a cross type, right? So they didn't have your mom's DNA to cross type it to say, is this her DNA? So what they did was a basic DNA search, which just says, is it male or female, right? If it would have been male, they probably would have done further testing to find out if it was hers. But since it came they're assuming it's his, and if it's not his, who cares, right? There's not another guy involved that we're worried about. So did like a simple typing just to see, is it male, female? It was male, so they just moved along, which I saw some pictures of that, and that does look like, you know, it looks like he was hunting and used a knife and did the white, you know, and it almost has like a purple hue to it versus human blood that dries kind of brown. But that's just for me being like, you know, a crime scene nut.
Well, that sheds some more light on it, but no, I had no idea anything about a shirt. They did one time call me in about a shoe that was found in a field, but I don't ever remember him showing it to me. I remember him describing the shoe to me. And I remember thinking that doesn't sound like any shoes that she has, but I never saw a shoe or anything. So
yeah, and maybe, you know, maybe it's something that was ruled out, and I just don't have that says, hey, this shirt was ruled out as like, you know, just didn't have any DNA on it or whatever. Or ruled out in some way. But the only information I have was that it was found near the truck. It's actually pinpointed on the map of where it was found. It was very near that truck. And that it was sent to the Nashville lab for testing, but I don't have any kind of results, or it's never mentioned again. So that's something to look into also.
Yeah, no, I don't know. And see, I guess I'm still trying to figure out how to, like, was that something that was in the case file or?
I believe that is in the. I'm trying to think which email I opened when I saw that. That might be in the official police report. I don't think that was in the timeline file that I read. I think that was in the police report that I read.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I'm still kind of sorting through some of it because I feel like there's a lot of like dead links in it, and I'm like, oh, I don't know what this is. Did I click this already? So,
Also, down rabbit holes. Like I have read obituaries for family members of the Conger family just to try to pick out who find that Adam character and where he fits in. And I've read all these articles, all these old news things on Google, and going through everybody's Facebooks I can and trying to find bits and pieces. So where I've gotten all this from is a little like obscure at the moment, but that's what
I think this Adam guy is Rhonda's brother.
I could see that. I haven't found that. I haven't been able to like prove that without reaching out to them, which I don't want to do yet. I want to make sure that right for that.
I want to say the police told me that maybe like that that it was Rhonda's brother, or it might have been.
Do you think the police mentioned it to you because he was there?
This is the guy that said something about Richard and Rhonda being involved to Amelia with the podcast. I feel like they told me that because he's pretty known to be a talker, I guess, when he's mad at people. And from what I understand, they mentioned he was not a very reliable source of information. So I feel like that's when I found out it was Rhonda's brother that they were talking about, because I don't think Amelia knew who he was in relation to me and to Paul's family per se.
Yeah, I mean that would make sense because I initially, from what I understand about what he said and what I've looked through and found, I didn't think that what he was saying could be true or could make any sense. I mean, there would have to be like several things and several people lying and stuff not total stories not matching up, right? But so I don't know if what he's saying is credible at all. That's why I was curious. First of all, who is he? And then if he is who he says he is it possible he was there that day? So those are the two. Is he Rhonda's brother?
Yeah.
Was he there that day? And then go from there. If he wasn't there that day, so, it just kind of negates everything he was saying. So
yeah,
we'll travel down that road once I can nail down who he is and incredible and stuff. And there's lots of little things we have to sort out. I know your grandmother got some theories. So. Those are things I'm tracking. I'm keeping an eye on. I'm not sure how soon we can talk about them yet with all this.
I gotcha. I think one of her biggest theories that she tells me a lot is she says that she personally saw, then they did not write it down or nothing, that Paul had like a turkey call that was found on him, and Richard also had one, and so did James, his dad. And she believes that they were communicating with those.
Right, to like tell him when he could come out of the woods when it was all clear and all. Me, I'm like, even if that is, which we might not be able to use this yet, but even if that's the case, so sure, maybe they were trying to like let him. They knew that he killed her, and he's hiding out in the woods, and they're going to tell him when he can come back out of the woods. Which is the goal here. I mean,
yeah.
He did something to her. That's his family. Maybe they were trying to help him, but would they go as far as helping hide her? That's all.
And that's kind of what I tell her is, take this with a little bit of a grain of salt, because at the end of the day, that's his family. They're going to protect him, but it may not be as malicious, because I'm sure they knew he messed up, and if they can help him get away, I mean, they don't want their brother to kill himself. That's sad.
And I'll say now, since we're talking real quick, because all this we'll talk about, the next.
Mm.
But obviously, I'm already like up to here with all this information. I already know probably everything. It's just I don't want to talk about it yet because it's not in the right place for our next.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm tracking all that stuff, and with Louise's timeline, I think her timeline's a little messed up too. There's stuff she said that like doesn't match how things actually happened according to.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure she reminds me of my grandmother, and I could totally see my grandmother saying those same things and thinking those same things, and I get it. So another thing you want to go over?
Last thing for me, and yeah, just to reiterate there, Amber, it's not. Amy's done a lot of work on this. It's not that we're trying to hold anything back or hide anything. It's more in terms of television. It looked like another day that you've been in contact, just to give a sense of time passing. Because obviously, Amy hasn't done all this work in one go, so we'll have lots of calls and we've got calls that will keep definitely across all of these things. I know it's killing her not to go into.
Yeah, like I heard your interview, and you should listen to it. I've actually thought about that. I thought about, I wonder what it's like for her to listen to her interview from back then.
Maybe she shouldn't listen to it now. Maybe
that's something
we could do together.
Yeah, I'd be happy to sit. Yeah, I'd be happy to sit as you listen to your interview, and we can just get your actual reaction to it.
Yeah.
Quite a good thing, and maybe you'll remember something. And
it might bring back something you remember.
It'd be good, but it would be, again, in terms of telling, that'd be really good to get that.
You did very good in your interview. You sound like a super sweet kid and a super strong kid at that, to have just been through that and then to be able to sit through an interview. You did a really good job, I remember. And I remember somebody coughing through the whole interview. I think it was your aunt. And then she finally got up and was like, I think I'm interrupting you guys. And she left. And I was like, oh, thank goodness, gosh, that coughing. It was so hard to
I bet that's my grandma Carol. I kid you not. She's still
away. Yeah. I was like, oh, this woman with the hacking, I can't really hear what they're saying. At first I thought it was the cop, and then I was like, good grief, get somebody else to do this interview. You are sick, my friend.
Yeah, no, it probably was. See, I was worried about that when we were talking. Like 2 weeks ago, I had a terrible cold. Like I had to get tested for work, and I was out of work for like a week. So I still have a little bit of a cough and some sniffles, and I'm like, oh gosh, I gotta keep some. I think in the beginning of us talking, I had to go in the fridge and get some water because I was like, there's no way my throat will just get too dry.
Especially if I get nervous. In the beginning of the conversation, I'm super nervous. So when I get nervous, I get dry mouth, and I'm like, I gotta have.
Yeah.
Your coughing hasn't been a bother at all. That interview though, it was kind of comical. It's just like, whoo, all over that microphone.
Oh yeah.
Rough cough. It's not like bronchitis. But okay. So what was the other thing?
Final thing. In a really kind of short summary way, essentially, what does Amber understand to have happened? Like, at what point did they come to the conclusion, and was Amber told that what's likely to happen is kill her mother then?
Okay, so that would be because the police didn't come to her later and say this is.
How did that that's what we assume has happened now, but where did that theory come from?
What was the first part of that?
It's just what is the theory, basically, because we haven't yet got at any point saying, and then.
So they found his body, but we don't know what happened to him really. Like the audience doesn't actually know what happened.
Yeah, they don't know that. Found the body, something over there. Everyone is exactly
right. And so when did she know that he had a self-inflicted wound and was like, it's assumed that he probably killed her mother?
Yeah. So I guess that's that. When did she know? But can Amber just tell you that? So then they found the body and.
Yeah, I think I gotcha. All right. So on Saturday morning, I understand they actually found Paul's body, and they found him up behind his house. But what was going on with that? I mean, was he just like laying on the ground or?
From what I understand, and I don't know, I had this little bit of a like maybe he's gonna come get me too complex. So my grandmother actually got me a copy of the autopsy report. So I told her that's what I wanted out. I thought it would make me feel a little bit better, just reading it. So from what I understand, he was found like propped up against a tree. Sorry. From what I understand, he was found like propped up against a tree, and he'd used a stick to pull the trigger of the gun. So I knew that he had shot himself through one of his eyes, because I was told that's why you can't have an open casket funeral, because it kind of looks like he probably had a black eye. Maybe was, well, obviously there's going to be other stuff going on there, but that's what I was understood to have happened. But from the spot, I think it was probably 3 years, because I went probably when I was like 18, maybe. There was this group that wanted me to come out there and just kind of go over some stuff. I remember we went and talked to Richard, and we went out to the lake, to the Lost Creek area, to the LBL area, and we looked around, and we tromped around through the forest, and we went to where he killed himself. And I just remember thinking, like, you can really, like, especially if he has a gun with a scope. And I know, like, my mom had bought him like a really nice scope as a gift. He would have a really good vantage point to see what was going on, like unfolding, so to speak, if he was in that spot. So I wonder if it was kind of like maybe, I guess at that point I did know, because I think that's the first time when I really let myself like kind of just break down a little bit and cry, like when I found out that they'd found him and he had killed himself. I knew, like, why would he kill himself if he hadn't done something bad to her, because if she was alive, then there's always the chance that they could reconcile. But if she wasn't even alive, then I could see that probably being the reason why. And I remember feeling very crushed because of that, just because, I mean, I mean, even at 13, you just know that means so much more without it having to even be said. And I think I remember going to his funeral, and that was, I don't remember how long after it was, but it was very like a surreal experience. One, it was like a closed casket. Like, and I remember his mom, my grandma Conger, she like kind of like passed out. Like, I guess she was like crying, and she like crumpled down in front of it. And maybe this sounds, I don't know, hateful, but I was like, gosh, why are all these people here crying over him? And like he's, some kind of great person that did all this good stuff. And I mean, now looking back, I didn't act that way, but I just remember feeling so full of hate and anger that everyone was sad over him. And I guess some of his family members that I still felt real close to, I don't know if it was his cousin or what, but his name was Harold. And he always thought the world of my mom. And I remember going and I found him, and you wouldn't think he was like a rough biker looking guy, but he saw me, he pulls me to the side, and I'm like, I just want my mom. And I cried, and he was like, it's going to be okay. It's, I know, and they can't bring her back. 'Cause I mean, at this point, everybody knows what it is. But she's always here watching over you, the typical like grief stuff. And I think he sat me down and went, because my great grandmother, it's actually my biological father's grandmother, took me to the funeral, because they were very, very supportive. My whole family was, my dad my dad's family. It didn't matter that it was, you know, they weren't together. They were very supportive, and she took me because my mom's mom, you know, she couldn't bring herself to go to something like that. And I don't know, it was closure. It helped me, but I don't know. I struggled a lot with his funeral just because it did feel like this means I have to admit that she's not out there. It means that I have to admit that I'm never going to see my mom alive again. So.
And it's not fair. In that moment, especially, it's not fair that his family got together around, and no matter what happened in his life, they got to have their process of grief. And that's not something that you've been given, and that's not fair.
And I think even as a kid, that was something that really hit for me. Like he took everything. My whole life will never ever be the same. Like I'll never have my mom for my important events, you know. And when I have kids, you know, I'm not going to be able to call my mom in the middle of the night. What do I do? You know, I'm not going to ever have that. And he took all of that stuff from me. So getting to watch his family, and not that even that I was angry with them, but I was just angry with the whole world that he got to have that too. He got to take everything he took from me, and I'm just standing here in the middle of all this what felt like chaos, and he gets to have a funeral. His family gets to mourn like normal. They don't have to create closure. I have to make my own. So that was definitely a hard point for me.
Listening to it, it feels like the villain won.
It for a long time it did feel like that. I mean, even now, you know, when I think about it, I can let myself get frustrated by that, but you know, just because I'm angry at the actions he took doesn't mean that I don't love him. It just means that I understand now that I am an adult. People have their issues, and you can't change people that aren't willing to change, that aren't willing to admit their mistakes. And it doesn't mean that his family should be denied that mourning process just because I'm hurt and angry.
Well, that's a healthy adjustment, you know, that you've made as an adult, and mental illness is a very real thing, and so it's sad and unfortunate. But if we educate people and we recognize the signs sooner, and if and have a way to seek out help faster, any of those things, that's all a positive outcome. And by you not carrying around that negativity and that hate and all of those things, that actually makes it to where he doesn't win. If that was his goal, to hurt you for the rest of your life or to hurt her, you know what I mean? Like if you live a healthy, happy life, that's the only way to keep him from winning in the end. So I'm glad that you've got that head on your shoulders, because that's not a place to get to. And I don't know if you go through therapy or not. I know I certainly go through therapy, but it seems like you maybe have had some, because you just seem pretty well adjusted with all of it.
Yes, I many years of therapy, and actually I think moving, because I think in July, when I was 14, so a little over a year later, I left Tennessee and moved to Georgia with my dad. And I really account that being a big game changer for me, because not being where there's constant reminders where everyone thinks they know your story and what happened to you, and they give you their take on things, their speculations. I feel like that's something that really was a game changer. And I happened to meet a very underrated, but my school guidance counselor, Miss Foreman, helped me more than anybody, any therapist, any, you know, even my family members. She just, no excuses, no nothing. You are making your bed and you got to deal with it. And you can't use what happened to you as an excuse to do the wrong thing. You can't use it as a crutch. You have to learn to move on. You have to learn to be stronger. but also deal with the reality of the situation. And I very much account a lot of my healing process to her, just because, like I said, she's very, very underrated, your school guidance counselors, but I stumbled upon her and very, very happy I did. So.
It's a tough love there, I'm sure. Well, cool. I think it's a good ending place. It's an emotional conversation, so be sure to get some good sleep before tomorrow. And,
Oh yes, definitely.
and I'll reach out to you here shortly. We'll give each other some more information, and then we'll set up another call.
All right, sounds good.
I'm happy to meet you.
I'm happy to meet you as well, and thanks for giving me your time tonight.
Yeah, I'm excited to whatever the outcome is. I'm excited to work on it.
I agree. Yeah, and thank y'all again so much for taking her case into consideration, because I'm right there with you. Whatever the outcome, I'm just happy to be able to have this experience and do this.
Well, it all seems meant to be in some kind of way.
Definitely.
All right. Well, we'll talk soon.
All right. Sounds good. Good night.